What's up, man?
Yesterday, Randy spoke about the biggest disappointment or situation out of camp was not finding a clear number 2 quarterback separation there. How do you assess that? You might be able to find a clear number 2.
Well, I mean, it's been kind of one of those deals. It's been day to day. You would love to come out and say that somebody was just a clear-cut guy, and coming out of camp right now, I'd say they both have had their moments. That's Ricardo and Caleb. And it's something that we'd like to try to get figured out sooner rather than later. But we need someone to step up and maybe take ownership of it, and we haven't gotten that. We've gotten some inconsistent play out of both those guys, and they both do certain things well. And until one of them shows the consistency that's necessary to be the number 2 guy, we'll have to go with both those guys and using them in a fashion that best utilizes their skill sets. I mean, you can tell Perry's not, in my opinion, and again, I'm not the medical staff, but I saw Perry at 100% last year, and it's safe to say that I don't think he's back to where he was at the point prior to his injury.
You know what you guys would do with that situation on Saturday? Would you just play by ear, based on the situation, if something happened?
Well, that's something that we talk about, as a staff. Usually we go through personnel on Thursday, so as of right now, that hasn't yet been determined. No, we got to get CJ ready to play. The good thing is for the most part, Caleb's played in some games. Obviously, Ricardo hasn't played in a meaningful game at the college level, but he is a veteran guy that's been in a few different systems. We've got a guy like Perry that started 6 games for us. So, I mean, I'm not too concerned as far as who that guy is. I'm just concerned that we haven't had a guy separate himself. So, as far as any one of those guys, in my opinion, is capable of going out there if something were to happen to CJ. But we want to put the best guy out there, and right now we still don't know who the best guy is if something were to happen to CJ. I mean, Brandon's a guy that last year was the guy that was number 1 prior to being injured. I do foresee he and Albert taking meaningful reps. In this day and age, as I've said before, having one guy just be the tailback is not the norm. But I think Brandon has kind of made some plays there for us, graded out pretty well. But we also feel like we have a 1B in Albert, who also has the ability to go out there. So, I think Brandon will be the first guy that you see run out there with the one offense. But I'm sure you'll see a lot of Albert Reed as well. Okay. Well, I mean, the big thing with Brandon is more of a comfort level in the system. I think last year he was a guy that made a lot of mistakes, and even though the abilities were there, you didn't know whether or not he'd be in the right place. Well, I think now with the consistency of the same offensive system, 2 years in a row for him, he has a pretty good grasp of it, and it's kind of taken away some of the thinking and the thought process that went on last year. Now he's just out reacting, and I think that can be said for all the guys. Being in the same system 2 years in a row, there is a familiarity, there is a comfort level, and you're seeing some of these guys play a little faster. Well, we need him, obviously, with the situation at fullback with Sersky being out. We do like to utilize a fullback in our system. We feel like Kenny's kind of done some things. He's a multi-purpose type guy that gives us the ability, possibly as a runner, as a blocker, as a pass catcher, and we're going to need him to play big and step in with Tyler being out.
You got a big infusion of talent this year on offense. And how much does the new personnel and the new threats change the play calling? I know you can't talk specifically, but is it very different compared to what you did last year?
Again, I've been of the opinion, you do what your personnel allows you to do. We're going to put the 5 best skill players on the field outside of our offensive line, and try to find ways to get those guys that have shown us they have playmaking abilities to get the ball. I mean, as far as different, last year I had to call plays based on the personnel, and we'll do the same thing this year.
And your history, you have had very different looking offenses based on who your personnel is, right?
Well, that's what you have to do. You find out each year as a new team, and to say that you have a cookie cutter system, every year we come out. Last year we had 3 veteran tight ends that were, guys that had played a lot of football, and we were obviously in some personnel groupings that took advantage of having that. This year we'll see once we start on Saturday where we are, but we feel pretty confident and comfortable. We'll put our best personnel groupings on the field and then continue to try to find ways to call plays to get the playmakers to football.
Do you think right off the bat teams are going to be a little more creative in how they game plan against Diggs specifically, or?
I would venture to say that most defensive coordinators want to try to make you, as we like to say, left-handed, and that they're going to figure out who your strengths are and try to defend against those and make you work things that aren't. I think one of the beauties of this year is that we feel like we've got a little more balance to where we have some other skilled players, and not that we didn't have those guys last year, but there's like we said, an influx of some talent that gives us the ability to spread the football around and still have that same type of playmaking ability that we got out of Stephon last year. Well, I think continuity is the key to any successful program, across the board. If you look at all the great teams, the teams that have successfully or been successful year in and year out, it usually starts with the continuity of the head coach being in place, coordinators, and then the assistants. And, for year 2, I know for us on the offensive side of the ball, just not having to come in and teach my system to the coaches and then have them go out and teach it to their players. Now, again, much like the players, there's a familiarity as to how I call things, how the system works, and it made it a little easier from an install standpoint. As far as gelling, we're all professionals, and for me, I've got some experienced guys in the room, some guys that have coached football at some of the top levels and in some of the better programs, and it's great to have different resources to reach out and lean on as you game plan. And each guy has some ownership into what we do. I wouldn't say get sick of each other. There are times where we get into a little moody. You need your little personal space, and we somehow work it out, though. It's a great group. They all get along well. Well, obviously, one of those guys came in and had been with us at that position from start to finish with the install. The other was a guy we moved over kind of midway through camp, and Derek Hayward. And I think they both have some talent. Obviously, I think Andrew's a little bigger, comes in maybe a little more physically ready to go out and maybe help us. But I think Derek Hayward has a tremendous upside as an athletic, long, tall athlete, catches the ball well, runs really well. So I think they both have bright futures. Well, we're going to put the 5 best out there on the football field. I've got confidence in Tom Bratton that he's going to find a way to put a unit out there that will be able to execute the plan that we put in place. I think those guys have worked well together. We feel like we've gotten some continuity to where we've had the same 5 guys, but still a work in progress. But I like the way that it's coming along up front. Well, you always want to be athletic up front, whether it's in most offenses. I don't know a lot of guys that don't nowadays want the big guys that are athletic. I think moving Michael Dunn inside definitely increases our athleticism. To have a guy that has a tackle skill set, play guard, allows us to, do some things as from a movement standpoint. So, but we feel like, again, his move to guard was predicated on trying to find the best 5 and putting them on the field. And Tom and Coach Etz have done a great job of figuring that out and moving the pieces in the position to try to give us a chance to go out and win. I think that's always the coaching point with your playmakers is that you've got to allow the game to come to you. don't try to do too much. Let take what they give you, and he's just has a special knack for making big plays out of little things, and that's a natural given talent that he has. And again, as a play caller, it's great to have a guy that can take a base play and make a few guys miss and still take it the distance. So you don't want to overcoach it or undercoach it, but I think if there is something that you take from it is with a guy like Stephon is, hey, let's make sure that we're making the routine play and not hurting your team by trying to do too much, and where you crossing fields and losing yardage to try to make a big play. Let's take what the defense gives you, and if you have the opportunity to make that play better, then do it. It's so hard for me to say that right now, just because I'm in game mode from a standpoint of game planning. But I think there's a number of guys. Obviously a guy like Michael Dunn, a former walk-on who's probably going to start his first game as a guard. Obviously he's done some things well. I've been happy and pleased with the way CJ's progressed. Having the Nigel step up and the Deions of the world come together. So it's too hard to just say which one guy has been the biggest surprise. But I'm pleased with the way it's coming along. But we still have a lot of work to do up front. We still have some inexperienced players on the offensive side of the ball that we've got to use every minute up to game time to get ready to play.